Thank you for joining us this morning. Foreign interference in Canada continues to pose a serious and persistent threat to our national security, our democratic institutions, and social cohesion. And today's press conference will reveal the findings of an investigation into alleged corruption and sub-state capture. And it will expose another front with which foreign actors have been exploiting in Canada. And you will hear from the following experts in this order. Gary Clement, former RCMP Superintendent and National Director for the RCMP's Proceeds of Crime Program, and also author of Canada Under Siege. Dean Baxendale, an international columnist and CEO of Optimum Publishing International and the China Democracy Fund. The Honorable Wayne Easter, Canada's 40th Solicitor General, a role that in Cabinet today is known as the Minister of Public Safety, and who represented the riding of Malpeque on Prince Edward Island for 28 years as their Liberal Member of Parliament. Sam Cooper, an award-winning investigative journalist and founder of the Bureau, and Lieutenant General retired Christopher Coates, Director of Foreign Policy, National Defense, and National Security at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, where I am also proudly a senior fellow. Now, before we hand it to Gary, it's important to highlight that today marks day 476 since Bill C-70 received royal assent. Bill C-70, an act respecting countering foreign interference, was passed during the previous Parliament, and it received royal assent on June 20th of 2024. In addition to modernizing CSIS and intelligence powers, it also introduced criminal offenses related to foreign interference and sabotage. Bill C-70 was also, though, meant to address a critical gap being exploited by shining a light into the shadows where operatives hide, and that is by creating a foreign agent registry. The United States has had one since 1938, and Australia since 2018. But nearly a year and a half after passing the required legislation, Canadians continue to wait for the federal government to act. Why? What's the reason for the delay? Parliament has done its job, and the creation of the registry is a simple order in council, something that can be done with the stroke of a pen. And yet we stand here 476 days later, still waiting. And now I turn the floor to Gary Clement.
Thank you very much, Kevin. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being here. This is a culmination of a two-year investigation. I want everybody to understand we didn't go looking for this. This investigation came to us. And what we found was money laundering, corruption, and elite capture at the highest levels. During our investigation, we had some brave citizens, islanders from Prince Edward Island that came forward and provided a depth of information that would provide for a law enforcement agency sufficient grounds to launch a criminal investigation. One of the things that we were able to look or ascertain was the amounts of money that was coming into the province was all in cash, consecutive $100 bills, brand new, in the amounts on a weekend of hundreds of thousands of dollars. This amounted to millions of dollars over the course of time that we looked into it over the number of years that the monastery, Bliss and Wisdom, has been operating in Prince Edward Island. We were able to establish that the monastery has set up a network of corporations. And if you look at it from a point of view of money laundering, it's what you would anticipate finding in an organized crime network. This monastery, if you look at it from a Dalai Lama's point of view, you would not anticipate finding corporations, land transfers, land flips, and citizens being paid under the table cash for residences and property. And that is what has happened in Prince Edward Island now for a period of a number of years, ever since the provincial nominee program came into existence and they were allowed in. The Master Jinyan, who came into the province, it is our belief from our investigation that he's tied directly back to the PLC, or the Communist Party in China. In my experience, having worked both in Asia and from 91 to 94, having collaborated with Sam Cooper and had hours of discussion with him over the many, many years, I can tell you my view is that the PRC government, the only way to describe it is that they're the largest transnational organized crime group in the history of the world.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning. Dean Baxendale. I find myself at this podium second time in a week. Last was with the Sikion from the government in exile in Tibet. So good morning, bonjour. Today I'm here to introduce, again, the investigation, Canada Under Siege, how Prince Edward Island became a forward operating base for the Chinese Communist Party. An investigation that really actually spans 5 years of research and intelligence gathering, and an 18-month to 2-year investigation that involved Gary Clement and Michelle Junot-Katsuya, the former chief of Asia Pacific. And it has a deep collaboration, including international and Canadian security experts, whistleblowers, eyewitnesses, religious experts, and consultation with multiple governments on multiple testimony on multiple continents. This investigation began with a question: how did Canada's smallest province become a strategic beachhead for foreign influence and interference and potentially corruption? At first, the story seemed local: immigrant programs, real estate deals, religious organizations. But what we uncovered went far deeper. We followed the money, we followed the networks, and we followed the silence. What we found were clear signs of elite capture, failed oversight, and infiltration of Canadian institutions and political parties at the municipal, provincial, and federal levels by actors aligned with the Chinese Communist Party's United Front Works Department, the Ministry of State Security. In some cases, political donations have come from members of organized crime groups in our country and have certainly influenced political decision-making over the years. Our investigation and book and documentary document how religious organizations like this particular group, Listen Wisdom, may have been exploited for money laundering and ideological influence. How the provincial nominee program enabled rapid immigration pathways, often without sufficient due diligence or follow-up, and how federal investigations and local investigations into irregular cash flows, immigration fraud, and suspicious property deals were quietly shut down without accountability. We explore how a PI hotel housed over 500 Chinese nationals, all allegedly trying to reclaim their $25,000 residency deposits, but they used a single hotel as their home address. The owners charged by the CBSA, only to have the trial shut down by the federal government itself. We examined testimony linked to the movement of over $1 billion into Prince Edward Island and other provincial jurisdictions, with tactics resembling the Vancouver model of transnational money laundering. This isn't just a book and about one province. It's about a system-wide failure to deter covert foreign operations and what happens when complacency meets strategy. Canada's democratic institutions are being tested, not with tanks or warplanes, but with capital, policy manipulation, and silence. A legal system complicit with turning a blind eye to improper and illegal practices. Today, we're calling for transparency, for national scrutiny, and most of all, for Canadians to wake up to the subtle siege underway. Thank you.
I'm Wayne Easter, former MP and former Solicitor General. I've been debating with myself how to approach this press conference to drive home the point on why in this country we need a federal public inquiry into the operations of Bliss and Wisdom and Prince Edward Island, both in terms of their land holding, the potential for money laundering, and the interconnections both provincially and globally. Why do we need that public inquiry, you may ask? Well, my first involvement with this issue was I got a call from a citizen in the Eastern PEI concerned about the amount of land that Bliss and Wisdom was buying when we have a land protection law in Prince Edward Island, and their long-term objective to bring in about 45,000 systems and use the monastery and the Buddhist institutions for those operations. So as a result of all that, there was a a investigation by Iraq, the Prince Edward Island agency that is involved in protecting the land purchases in Prince Edward Island. So they did an investigation, but they won't release the report. That's a lack of transparency. And there's been a lot of other reports, and I want to tie this together. There's the Iraq report that we can't get a hold of. There's the issues that Dean mentioned in terms of suspicious trails that's outlined in the book. There's several reports from Parliament. This is the interim report. This is the National Security Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarian reports, all looking at involvement of China in Canada. And there's the Hogue Commission report. So there's threads leading everywhere in terms of concerns over Chinese involvement in Canada. And I think the operation in Prince Edward Island is key to where things seem to be going. Is that a forward operating base to move to other areas of the country? So it's for all those reasons, tying those threads together, that there's only one real way to get to the bottom of what is happening, and that would be a federal public inquiry. There's no sense doing a provincial one, because as Dean has mentioned, there's too many interconnections within Prince Edward Island to really get to the bottom of the issue. And you'd need a federal public inquiry that can subpoena witnesses, can trace bank accounts, can bring in people in internationally to get to the bottom of this issue. So the bottom line is we need a federal public inquiry into Bliss and Wisdom in Prince Edward Island to finally get some answers on all the interconnections that are involved with this file. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here today. And what I want to drive home very briefly is I think the citizens of North America and the Western world now need to recognize the pattern recognition that reporting from myself, reporting on this excellent new book, and others, including reporting in the United States, is revealing to citizens that have had little idea of how extensive and pervasive the Chinese Communist Party's operations are, targeting North America and, alarmingly, Canada's smallest province. I'm here today because at the Bureau.news I have published a number of op-eds from Gary Clement and also Dean focused on their research in PEI. Before that, I worked with Gary and Dean to publish my book, Willful Blindness, in 2021. It was very much focused on my own discovery of Chinese organized crime, underground banking, and the Chinese Communist Party through the United Front, and how a flood of shady money had washed into Canada's west coast and Vancouver and essentially captured major portions of the economy. I was focused on urban landscapes. My colleagues are focused mostly on rural landscapes. And let me say the patterns they have revealed in PEI are much the same as have been revealed in Oklahoma, Maine, across the United States, where we now hear in congressional testimonies the Chinese Communist Party and their Chinese crime networks have bought massive amounts of farmland near critical infrastructure and leveraged it into organized crime marijuana operations that are consistent with not only running weed money, but fentanyl money, human trafficking. All kinds of money is being laundered through American land, and the American government is now starting to take that seriously. As my colleagues have indicated, not yet has the Canadian government or the PEI government taken it seriously. So there's a bigger picture here, and also at the Bureau, I've been reporting in the theme of pattern recognition that the UK government is now undergoing a scandal in which it appears Labour leader Keir Starmer and his government have suppressed the flagship, the largest espionage case ever focusing on China networks. The case was canceled We're reading more and more about it in UK's media. And what I want to say is, I recognized it seems almost the exact same story that I exposed at Global News, the targeting of Canada's parliament, in which Justin Trudeau's government apparently pressed down on reporting from Canadian intelligence that was pointing most alarmingly to China's attacks of Conservative MPs, gathering information on MPs such as Michael Chan, and supporting more friendly MPs from other parties. Thanks. Those are my remarks today.
Hello. You heard from Gary and Dean about the activities in Prince Edward Island, and Wayne described what needs to be done to start addressing these impacts. Sam addressed the wider impacts of these threats facing Canadians and our international partners. These are the visible tip of the iceberg, but Canadians seem to be looking the other way, not seeing the dangers that have appeared around us. Canadians have created a society that was the envy of many people around the world. We embraced individual rights and tolerance of others. We live in an open society, one that provides a high degree of freedom. Many have described how our free and open societies present a paradox, a contradiction, in being both the virtue that we cherish and the vulnerability that threatens us. Problems are now growing so that Canadians can no longer afford to get away with treating national security challenges the way we have been. As CSIS leadership noted in their 2024 report, overall, threats to Canada's national security have increased and are intensified. Most significantly, CSIS agrees with US and UK intelligence agency assessments that never in our combined histories have we faced threats of such magnitude simultaneously. These national security threats include the foreign interference in elections that Canadians have heard about in the Hogue Report, but that extend well beyond and into the day-to-day fabric of Canadian society. They are a significant part of the money laundering, elite capture, transnational repression, cyber attacks, and disinformation and misinformation activities affecting Canadians today. These threats have converged with cartels and terrorist organizations, creating an increasingly dangerous mixture that blends transnational threats with organized crime. As noted in the media, the RCMP identified challenges dealing with foreign actors behind these and other national security challenges. As a society, we have failed to provide sufficient legal, law enforcement, intelligence tools, and those adjacent elements connected to education, immigration, cybersecurity, border security, combat against organized crime and money laundering, and other drivers of a secure society. As the Macdonald-Laurier Institute and others have described, transnational repression is affecting Canadians in their daily lives and bridges coercion with criminality with national security. There is a need to address security beyond the business and government focus of Bill C-70 and the Foreign Agent Registry. Intimidation extends from Canadian companies being unwitting instruments of repression to threats against members of the diaspora and their family members outside Canada. Our legal system fails to protect intelligence in ways that permit cases to be advanced through the courts. Our legal frameworks and their tools were designed for different threats and are misaligned with the digitally enabled, dynamic, and diffuse networks that both criminals and foreign actors utilize. Investigations and prosecutions are impeded by legal obstacles such as Stinchcomb-related disclosure standards and Jordan-related time restrictions. The failure to implement the Foreign Influence Transparency Commissioner further limits the ability to understand and respond to these activities. Similarly, the failure to properly implement a federal registry of beneficial owners contributes to the total of between $45 to $115 billion being laundered in Canada each year, much of it in support of or as a result of the activities I've just described. Bill C-2, the Strong Borders Act, is intended to address national security challenges, but is not yet past second reading. Even once law, Bill C-2 is focused on the Canada-US border and will not address transnational repression, illicit financing, investment screening, cyber standards and incident reporting, and many other national security vulnerabilities. notwithstanding that it won't deal with many of the urgent national security challenges. Like so many new pieces of legislation, the success of Bill C-2 will depend on the pace of completion and its implementation, including the content of the attendant regulations that must be introduced in order to make key parts of the Act operable. So in addition to the direct impact on Canadians at home, the failures to adequately address our national security challenges threatens Canada's relations with allies, impacting economic security and national prosperity. The activities in PEI, as highlighted by Dean and Gary, are beyond concerning and are more than financial crime. They are part of the iceberg that threatens Canada's national security. Canadian leaders need to recognize the serious nature of these threats and take the necessary steps to protect Canada.
Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Merci, c'est ce qui conclut cette conférence de presse.
Thank you.